Welcome to the 200th edition of Crimewatch. As always, these people here in the studio are detectives. They're from right across the country.
And they're here tonight to solve Britain's most difficult and serious crimes.
One of which goes back almost 30 years. Lesley Molseed's murder was notorious, made worse by jailing the wrong man. So who did do it?
The Russian hero on the South London train.
I kill you! I kill all of you!
The neighbour who came to deliver a paper.
Gladys, it's Roland.
But what he found made even bigger news. Indeed, our first case was in the headlines this morning. You must have read or heard about the jogger murdered in the park. It happened on Monday in Victoria Park in East London. And the victim turned out to be a promising young American artist, Margaret Muller.
Earlier today, I spoke to Detective Chief Superintendent John Shatford, who's heading the investigation.
Well, it was about 8:30 in the morning when some witnesses heard some screams. Having moved around, they saw the body of young Margaret lying in the actual pathway along here.
And Margaret had been stabbed several times.
She had a stab wound in her neck and then multiple stab wounds to her body.
And what do you know about Margaret?
Well, we're piecing Margaret's life together at the moment. She lived for her art. She comes from the Slade School, very accomplished artist. She's been in England since 1998.
She's American?
She is an American citizen. What we're asking for at this time is firstly anyone who knows Margaret, friends of hers that can give us information, come forward.
You've got new information today that you want to follow up, haven't you?
Yes, we have. It's two Mediterranean men running from the area of what's known as the Rose Garden, so it's just here somewhere, towards a gate over there. They were described as sprinting from the scene, but when they got to the gate, they hung their heads down in a way that tended to make the witness think they were trying to conceal their identity.
Anything more about their description? Age,
well,
height?
one of them, they're in their early 20s. One of them's described as being 6 foot tall, wearing training shoes with dark cropped hair brushed forward. The second individual is described as being smaller than that, so smaller than 6 foot, with a hooked nose, again short black hair but described as being scruffy, and wearing a Parker type jacket with blue jeans, both of them wearing blue jeans. But in addition to that, I think we've got to keep an open mind and see who else might be responsible. Now, if this is a stranger, if it's someone who's in any way disturbed, and I don't want to jump to any conclusions here, if there are people, if there's any individual that people are suspicious of around this area, then to come forward to us, or anyone whose character has changed over the days, who they're suspicious of, who they feel is acting differently. Now, it may be nothing, but at least it gives us the opportunity to eliminate them.
Well, if you know anything, pick up the phone, call us here, or ring the incident room. That's on 020 8345 1594.
If you're over the age of about 30, the name Lesley Molseed may be familiar to you. Her face became a poignant symbol of child murder. If you're under 30, you may know the name Stefan Kisko. His conviction for Lesley's murder was one of the most dramatic miscarriages of justice. Tonight, we can reveal new evidence in a bid to find the real killer of Lesley Molseed. Forgotten for 2 decades in a high-security laboratory in Yorkshire. A few remaining fragments of evidence from Lesley Molseed's murder. In 1999, with the case reopened, new technology revealed a startling clue.
We were absolutely elated. Really. It's like all Christmases rolled into one. They had actually found DNA.
One Sunday afternoon in 1975, April had sent her daughter Lesley out to the local shop on the Turfill estate in Rochdale.
I says, Lesley, will you go and get me a loaf, darling? I haven't got enough bread for dinner and that. So the argument started. This was normal with Lesley. Well, how much am I going to get for it? I says, you'll get your usual. You'll get threepence and like it.
Lesley's way to the shop lay up Styups Lane.
I believe that Styups Lane is the place where Lesley was abducted. It's clear she was going down there to the shop. It's a high-sided lane and would afford some protection to an abductor. And I have to say, I suspect that Lesley was probably talked into the car.
She was such a chatty little thing. Everybody knew Lesley. Well, most people knew Lesley, or they knew of her, because she was such a chatty, friendly child.
That afternoon, a driver on the A672, the road that runs from Halifax to Oldham, saw a girl who looked like Lesley walking with a man on the moor.
She was 11, but she looked smaller. She looked about maybe 9. In height, you know, very small, very tiny.
3 days later, her tiny body was found on the moor. Lesley had been sexually assaulted and stabbed.
After two hours, I knew that Lesley was gone. And after 3, I just turned to my husband and I looked at him and I says, Lesley's dead.
I believe Lesley was led up there. It's hugely poignant that the shopping bag is at the scene, and I think probably she walked up there with that shopping bag and thought she was going home later that afternoon.
My husband woke me up and said the detectives think they've found Lesley. They wanted us to go to Halifax. They just took me down the corridor, took me into a room, and she was lying on the table as though she was asleep. She just looked as though she was asleep. And for one wonderful moment, I thought she was asleep.
But the tragedy was made even worse, a notorious miscarriage of justice. Police arrested Stefan Kisko, who lived with his mum in Rochdale, and he was convicted of Lesley's murder.
It had a closure to it, an ending.
There was considerable compelling evidence in 1975 that Stefan Kisko had been the killer of Lesley Molseed. Detectives had a signed confession. They had allegations of 2 indecent exposure offences that they could link Kisko to, and there was other aspects of evidence as well that suggested he may have been responsible.
Yet Stefan had confessed under circumstances that would nowadays be inadmissible in court. And his mother, Charlotte, knew for sure he hadn't done it. He'd been with her at the time. She campaigned tirelessly for his release.
Knowing that Stefan was innocent was a driving force because she was with him. And they did what they did every Sunday, which was visit the grave of his father. Stefan, he's often been painted as somebody who was not very bright, but I think that's unfair. He worked for the England Revenue as an inspector, held that job down, was doing well, spoke a number of languages, played a musical instrument. So he was certainly intelligent enough. I think what he was extremely naive and ingenuous.
15 years after Stefan had been sent to prison, Campbell Malone persuaded the Home Secretary to have the case reopened. It soon emerged that Stefan was infertile. That meant he couldn't possibly have produced the semen found where Lesley died. In 1992, after 16 years inside, Stefan Kisko was released.
I didn't accept it right away. I just couldn't fathom out how they could keep that man for 16 years and him not be guilty.
16 years has been a nightmare and hell, to be honest with you. In the way that a prisoner of the nature of the offence with which I was convicted of gets treated in prison.
Less than a year later, Stefan had a heart attack and died. And soon afterwards, his mother, Charlotte, followed.
I think it was her determination to see Stefan free that kept her alive, and then to be there for him because he desperately needed her by his side when he came out.
Stefan Kisko was definitely innocent, so Lesley's killer is still out there, and a new inquiry's underway.
A major stumbling block for us was that most of the evidence had been disposed of in the 70s. All we ever had to work on was the paperwork involved in the case. We knew that Stefan Kiszko couldn't produce sperm, and we knew that sperm had been on Lesley's body, but only through documentary evidence.
The test that we used was specifically developed for this case, and we undertook 2 or 3 months of experimental work.
I remember getting the call, hearing that we now had a DNA profile.
Now all police needed was a match, and the focus was on where Lesley was abducted. Over 200 men have volunteered for tests, many from the Turf Hill estate in Rochdale.
Are you prepared to give us a sample?
Yeah.
The man would, if living, be between 50 and 70 now. We can, with one simple process, eliminate people from this inquiry once and for all. We have indeed checked the profile against people like Peter Sutcliffe, Robert Black, the type of people that are in prison for such things now, and there is no match there. All we need is a name. After 28 years, we will never have a better chance of catching the killer of Lesley Molseed.
Max, you say you've tried to get a match, but you've only released the fact today for Crimewatch that you've got this DNA. Why have you withheld that?
Well, it's a wonderful breakthrough for West Yorkshire Police in a crime that we're really keen to see solved. And of course, Crimewatch have a terrific record in terms of old cases. We've held on to this information because in the time we've had it, we've looked at all the suspects that were raised in 1975. Something like 12,000 people were seen in the first 3 months, and gone through the main suspects. We haven't found a match, and I'm looking to viewers to help us find that match tonight.
Now, the tragedy is that if people had suspicions, because Stefan Kiszko was in prison for it, they presumably assumed they'd been wrong.
Absolutely, and I quite understand why people perhaps haven't come forward in the past. We have a situation here where Stefan Kiszko was arrested something like 3 months after this terrible murder in October 1975. So I'd look to people to think about going back to 1975. We know that our offender must be in the region of about 50 or 60, 70 years old. He would have had access to a vehicle and probably knew the areas, probably knew Rochdale, the Turf Hill estate, and probably knew the Ripponden area. So if you can put those together, please call in.
That's possible, of course. He's since died.
Yes, absolutely, and that's a very important part of our work. It's a very easy process for us to eliminate people. Certainly we can see them in a 2-minute process when they're living, but we can also eliminate people who are dead. So I'm very keen that callers who might harbour suspicions about any particular man from that time do call in with those details. It's a simple process for us.
Whoever did this obviously doesn't have much of a conscience. He was prepared to see an innocent man stay in prison for 16 years. Perhaps more worrying, though, is it just seems improbable, doesn't it, that somebody who had an unblemished record before should abduct a little 11-year-old who looked 9, take her up to the moors, stab her repeatedly, and then never offend again.
Absolutely. This is a ruthless, brutal murder of an 11-year-old girl happened in Yorkshire. And, you know, we really need to catch this man. He may well have offended before. He's likely to have offended since. The best thing we can do is get him behind bars.
Well, if that's not enough, listen again to Lesley's mum.
This will be the last interview that I will be doing. I live in hope, but I have to step down now. I don't think I'll ever see who killed Lesley. But my children might.
If you've any suspicions at all, as you've heard from Max, a DNA swab can just so easily settle things. Just call in, for the sake of Lesley's family and for the sake of any other potential victims.
An unusual appeal now. This has been in the news for the last couple of days. It's an appeal for 4 children and their parents. Tara, Tig, Charlie and Sid have been in care since last May. On Saturday, their parents came to visit them at Wem Social Services near Shrewsbury. Somehow, Sharon Richards and Stephen Hayward managed to spirit their children away and into their car. There haven't been any definite sightings since.
The children were taken into care because they've suffered neglect from their parents in the past, and the police are, well, extremely anxious to find them now. It's likely that they're travelling in their mum's car, which is a white Peugeot 205, and it's registration E512FLE, though it's possible the 6 of them might have split up. And one place they might conceivably be tonight is somewhere in Ireland. We know that they've got family and friends there. If you've seen any members of the family, please give us a ring.
And Konstantin Karitanov is a Russian who's been working in London for over a year. One of his hobbies back home was picking wild mushrooms. On Saturday last November, he set off to do just that.
I used to pick up wild mushrooms from the age of 5, probably, and I did it in Russia, I did it in Canada. Now I'm doing it in the UK. They taste much more better than those that you buy. On that day I went to the Russian shop and, to get some directions how to get to Richmond Park and where to look for the wild mushrooms there.
Или вот на West Croydon Station ты можешь прямо туда поехать.
When I came down to that platform in West Croydon, I noticed there were not so many people, but I noticed one strange guy, and he was watching around as if he was seeing something suspicious around him.
Platform 3 for the South Central train service to London Victoria via Norbury.
I've noticed that he was watching pigeons who were walking down the platform, and when one of the pigeons approached him, he jumped at him and tried to hit him. It seemed very strange to me. I thought that something is wrong with that guy.
We're looking for anyone who is on West Croydon Station on the first Saturday in November and remembers this man behaving oddly.
I was basically relieved that he was entering the other car. When I turned around, I saw a group of people barging through the rear door.
Stupid! I kill you! I kill you!
I don't know what happened before on the train between that young lady and the guy. She was crying, and the old lady was trying to comfort her, and the gentleman was trying to protect both of them. Everyone was trying to pretend that nothing happened.
I kill all of you!
Eventually, that man left, and I thought that everything was over.
Call us if you were on this lunchtime train between West Croydon and Victoria on Saturday the 2nd of November. We know that the older couple protecting the girl were Belgian tourists, but who are the others? Call us free on 0500 600 600.
I kill you! You stupid!
He looked very aggressive, and he was walking down the aisle like a rooster in the barn. His hand was in his pocket. Initially, I thought he was bluffing.
I kill you! I kill all of you! I kill you!
I decided that something has to be done just to protect these people who seemed innocent to me.
I see you! I know what you're doing!
What helped me is that I worked in the West Siberian oil cities full of oil men who were ready to fight at any time. When I saw a knife, I was just a little bit stunned. At that time, the train was pulling to Balham Station, and it stopped, and the doors opened. I was lucky enough that the knife hit my breastbone and didn't go to the left or to the right, otherwise I could have been in more serious trouble.
The knife man ran down the stairs at Balham Station. Did you see him there? Where did he go? He's tall and thin with short hair. Do you know who he is?
What's wrong with us Brits? The only people that helped that woman were Constantine and 2 Belgian tourists, and no one's come forward to help since. Now's your chance, and there's a £5,000 reward. Our number's always on the screen, 0500 600 600. And now from the National Crime Faculty, it's Detective Sergeant Jackie Haynes.
3 robberies, all caught on camera. Now let's catch the robbers. Who's this in a building society in Woolton Village, Liverpool? He's demanding money and claiming to have a gun, but he's about to get a bit of a shock. When staff are confronted, they trigger the alarm button, which activated a shutter to keep them safe. He didn't get away with any money this time, but tell us who he is. There were 2 unwelcome visitors to the Q8 service station in Chingford, Essex last year, and they're probably not locals. Cashier said they had either Liverpool or Newcastle accents, so viewers in the north take a good look. After hanging around, one of them suddenly attacked the cashier. You can't see it here, but he's hitting her with a metal pole. They managed to get away with money and lottery tickets. Did they look familiar to you? Who's this at an off-licence in Plaistow, East London, brandishing a silver handgun? He demands that money be put into a white hat. He tried to stay in the shadows as long as possible, but eventually had to come forward into the light to grab the cash before running away. Please call us here in the studio, 0500 600 600.
We're getting some quite good calls tonight. We've already had 8 people ring who've harboured suspicions about who did the Lesley Molseed murder and have given us names, which obviously will be followed up. There's a lot more coming in now. Let me tell you a bit more too about the children, the 4 children who were abducted from Shrewsbury. Actually, I think we showed you the wrong picture earlier on, was up when I was talking about that. Here are the 4 of them, Tara, Tig, Charlie and Sid. Their parents are called Sharon Richards and Stephen Hayward. Now, they are most likely in the mum's car, which is a Peugeot 205, a bit like this one. The registration is E512FLE. As I said, they might be in Ireland, but to be honest, they might be anywhere at all. If you've seen them, give us a call. The studio number, as Fiona said, is on the screen most of the time. If you're watching us on digital satellite TV, you can email us directly through your remote control. You just press the red button on your handset and choose Connect. Coming up, how Crimewatch viewers led detectives directly to a killer.
These are fragments of a clue that could help solve a murder. We're going to show you those in a moment. When you put the pieces of it together, there's a memo from someone called Talbot to someone called Armstrong, confirming an appointment for the 18th of December. Someone had tried to burn it, along with a man's body. He'd been shot and stabbed, set alight, and then dumped near Peterborough in Cambridgeshire, not far from the A1. And this is what he might have looked like. Take a look at this. This is Detective Superintendent David Hankins. David, first of all, when was he killed?
We believe he was killed either on the 20th of December or in the early hours of the 21st, and we believe that by virtue of the fact that his internal organs were fresh. He was also wrapped in bed linen and he didn't have any shoes. So we think he may have been killed indoors and then transported to this small village called Upton near Peterborough.
And what have you been able to find out about him?
Well, whilst we don't know who he is, we do know a lot about him. We know that he's between 30 and 45 years of age, approximately 5 foot 6 inches tall, stocky build. Maybe he has some Asian or Middle Eastern features. Maybe he's been onto continental Europe because there's some dental work which is typically continental. And he was a stocky man.
And he had very badly chipped front teeth, didn't he, which someone may well remember.
Yes, he did. That's some damage to his teeth that's been done for some considerable time. And the 2 upper front teeth, it looks as though it's been chipped by something, we don't know how.
OK, well, let's take a look at this. Now, these fragments of paper were found by his body, very badly burnt. But take a look at this, because you can see the ME there and there. These 2 memos, which you've painstakingly put together here. As far as you're able to ascertain, what do they say?
Well, it's a memorandum, it's a pro forma memorandum, and the word Armstrong is the person who sent this memorandum. That's in type. Handwritten is the word Talbot. So it's a memorandum to somebody called Talbot, inviting them to bring along a specimen of urine to an appointment on the 18th of December.
That's right, we can see it down here, Wednesday, the 18th of December. Now, the important thing is, I mean, there can be lots of reasons why someone would send a pro forma about a urine sample, insurance, doctor's appointments, that kind of thing. That's not the information you want from people tonight, is it? You want to know who Talbot is and who Armstrong is.
It's very important that we find out who these 2 people are. It may well be that somebody called Talbot failed to make that appointment. So we need to identify Armstrong, we need to identify Talbot, because we do think these memoranda are associated with the dead body.
OK, well, we've got other clues here. Now, this T-shirt
this, or a T-shirt very similar to this, was found as well. Let's take a look at this. This is Polo Club, Royal County of Berkshire. I mean, this is a fake, though, isn't it? There's no real T-shirt.
No, that is a fake. That was
Club.
one of 4 T-shirts that the man was wearing when we found him. So he was well wrapped up for inclement weather. But that is a very distinctive T-shirt. Somebody might recognise that.
OK, and one other important clue was this cigarette lighter. Now, it's pretty rare, a lighter like this, isn't it?
Again, that cigarette lighter is not distributed in this country. It's mainly found in Holland. It's got Alfredo Espresso on there. It was found very close to the body. We've also found close to the body the remains of a petrol can. So there is a distinct possibility that that lighter was used to set the body on fire.
OK, well, thanks very much for that. Well, please take a look at the face again. Call us or call the incident room on 01733 4242.
Now, an audacious series of attacks. In fact, so audacious, it's astonishing that they haven't had more publicity. The morning after the night before, New Year's Day, in Rotherhithe, just across the river from London's Docklands. It's 7:20 in the morning.
If you want me to avoid using a knife, keep quiet. All I want is some money. I'm not gonna rape you. Don't worry.
You said you'd go.
This is my moment. I just want to give you pleasure.
After sexually assaulting her, he pushed her face down on a pillow and climbed back out through the window. Rotherhithe seems to be an area he knows well, but he then attacked near the Elephant and Castle. The target was a hotel, the victim was a tourist. Again, somehow he got in through a first-floor window, and maybe he'd been watching early on a Tuesday morning in May. He seemed to know there was a woman in the room. His victim was so distressed, she fled the country. Then back to Rotherhithe at 4 a.m. one Thursday in July. This time he was more violent and grabbed his victim round the throat. In September, he turned his attention to Brixton. And again, he may have been keeping watch.
Okay, girls, that's you.
Thank you. Great, thanks.
Hello.
It was a good night. I hadn't seen my friend for a while.
How much is that?
£10, please.
There you go.
Thank you.
Have a
Take
good
care.
night.
You too.
She was staying for the night, and it was good to catch up.
It was really nice to see everybody. I didn't like that perfume though. Oh, God, no. Really nice house, though. It's unfair, isn't it? It's 2:30. Should just go to bed and watch telly.
We heard the rain and the windows. And I remember mentioning to my friend, God, it's really raining outside.
All right. Oh, no, wait.
I've opened and shut that window so many times I knew exactly what the noise was when I heard it.
I think someone's coming into the flat.
What?
Get out of my flat!
The only thing I could think of when I saw him there was to just make as much noise as I can, just to try and wake somebody up.
Right. Shh. We're all going to stay calm. We're just going to lie here for 5 minutes.
He didn't raise his voice. He was quite softly spoken. He was calm. He would say please a lot. He knew exactly where to lay us so we couldn't try and fight. He would ask us to do things in quite a sort of caressing way. It seemed like he wanted to carry out some fantasy of having 2 girlfriends or something.
Can I go to the loo?
He let me go to the toilet. I didn't run out of the flat because my friend was still his hostage.
Emma, wake up!
My flatmate was in bed and I was trying to knock on her room, which is next to the toilet. I left the light on purpose, and that's when I realised he was wearing a green polo T-shirt, beigey combat shorts and black and white Adidas trainers. I felt his hand relax on me, and that's when I took the chance.
Call the police! Emma, call the police!
and then he just calmly walked out. It's like it's the natural way to go out of a house, scale down the window. It's nearly the worst thing that can happen to you. In your own bed, having a stranger there, using force to make you do things you don't want to do. It's a very dark place to be.
2 weeks later, he was back in Rotherhithe, attempting to rape a 20-year-old girl while her father slept next door. And what may be a critical sighting. This is a man who was seen round the time of the last known attack. He may have nothing to do with it, but police badly need to speak to him. Nick Mervyn, this guy is obviously crucial because he could have been an important witness, and of course he could conceivably have been the offender as well. And that jacket is actually pretty distinctive.
Absolutely. This image has been taken shortly before the last assault that we've got in Pennington Place. The jacket is distinctive. It's a dark blue jacket with a white back, and there's lettering, quite large lettering at the bottom and the rear of the jacket. It's also got white sleeves.
And he appears to have a black backpack of some description.
That's correct, yeah.
Now, if he's just wandering past and had nothing to do with this, we need to know who he is. We need to get in touch with him, obviously. And it seems that's the most likely explanation. I suppose if he was involved, it would have been rather odd to go out with such a distinctive jacket.
That's right, but I must emphasise that at the moment this gentleman is somebody that we're looking to talk to. He may have significant information around at the time of the assault.
Now let's get clear the physical description, because you've got good descriptions from victims of this, and he's a tall guy. I mean, one put him 6 foot, another 6'2". I think the shortest one's put him at 5'10". Is that right?
Yes, we have. He's between 5'10" and 6'2". He's a powerfully, muscularly built man. He's got smooth skin, and he's, as I say, muscularly built.
And, well, not just muscular, quite audacious too. I mean, I gather you've been to pretty much all the places that he climbed up, and it's a very difficult climb.
I have. I've been to a couple of the scenes, and the places he's been to the climbs have been extraordinarily difficult. He must be a very athletic and agile individual to be able to achieve those climbs.
Now, this hasn't got a lot of publicity because it took you some time to link all these together. This is actually a very dangerous sequence of events. They have stopped now. I should stress that for people living in the area. There doesn't appear to be any great danger now. It's obviously very worrying because he's done this so often.
Well, they have stopped for the time being, but we do think he has become more confident and more aggressive as the attacks have gone on. It may be possible that he will start again, so we're very anxious to find this man and anxious to find the gentleman in the CCTV still.
Well, if you've had any experience of anything like this, perhaps you're a bloke and saw somebody outside trying to get in, he made a mistake, thought there was a woman in the flat, whatever, and you haven't reported to the police, let us know, call us so that they can check dates and all the rest of it. Any way you can help, just ring us here at Television Centre or call the incident room at Walworth. That's on 020 7232 6166.
We're getting a lot of calls on the Lesley Molseed case. It's so encouraging, given this case is 28 years old. 3 viewers have rung in naming the same name, the same man. I've just double-checked with the officer in charge. In fact, this person has been eliminated. But keep your calls coming in. Remember, it just takes one call to make a difference, as 2 viewers proved last year.
What's happened? Hello? Can you hear me?
Echo November 9-1, can we have an ambulance please to Prescott Road?
Hello, I'm a police officer, can you hear me?
Serious stab wounds, receiving.
Ray was a loving person, family person. He had a daughter called Laurie. At the time of his death, she was 6 years old. She talks about her dad all the time.
Ray was killed a year ago at the shop he owned in Liverpool. But there was a suspect from the start. One of Ray's staff was seen leaving their workplace just before Ray himself staggered out. He'd been stabbed 13 times. The employee, Joe Barton, disappeared, but blood-stained clothing was found at an address he was using.
We'd see somebody that looked like him. We'd go up and have a look. We'd be driving along in the car, and I'd say, stop the car, there he is driving in that car.
And Liverpool CID are after Joseph Barton.
We had no information that came into us from the first appeal. We believe that someone out there must have known Joe Barton and that somebody would know where he was.
So next month we tried again, and this time with results. A woman called the programme to say that Joe visited her shop in Manchester. She remembered the face and was sure it was him. And another viewer pointed to the Radcliffe district in the city. After that, it was a matter of watching and waiting.
That's him.
I'll take the back.
All right, mate.
He's through the back!
Joe Barton denied the murder. He claimed it was self-defence. With insufficient evidence to prove murder, the charge was reduced to manslaughter. As a bonus, Joe Barton also confessed to drug dealing and has been sentenced to a total of 13.5 years.
It was great news for the inquiry team. Joe Barton had been convicted, the evidence was overwhelming, and he was going to prison for 13.5 years.
So if we can do that again now, gun culture is big news, and last Saturday hundreds of women went on a march in Nottingham. They call themselves Mothers Against Guns, and one was this boy's mother. He's Brendan Lawrence. Brendan was a 16-year-old schoolboy who was shot and killed a year ago in the St Anne's district of Nottingham. We know that two men, both black, were involved. They stole the car he was in, but they left clues behind in that car when they dumped it. They left, for example, shoes like this, Nike Bohemian size 8 trainers. This one's a copy. Only 16 pairs in size 8 were sold in Nottingham, assuming that the people came from Nottingham. The Nike swoosh has been unpicked from the outer side of both shoes. Now, we've done this and it's taken about half an hour to unpick that, and even then, look at this mess that's left behind. This wasn't there on those shoes, so somebody's gone to a lot of trouble to do this. Now, police haven't revealed this clue before. It could be crucial. It could be the hallmark of a gang, or is it just a fashion statement? If you know anyone who does this, let us know. There was also a blue Donné hooded top. It's 5 to 10 years old. It's size large. Whose was that? Can you put that together with these shoes? Brendan Lawrence was killed a year ago this month. Do you know anybody who could have done it, or why? There's a 10 grand reward. Bring us here in the studio.
Still near Nottingham, 87-year-old Gladys Godfrey was Mansfield born and bred. She lived in Devon Drive on the Ladybrook estate, a neat row of bungalows for the elderly, all linked by intercom to social services.
Everybody in the family used to call her Tetty. I know it's a silly name really, but we don't even know where it came from. She was quite a placid person really. Never seemed to lose her temper, or it only happened as she got older and a bit forgetful and that. She couldn't move about. She used a walker. She used to have a care worker come in once a week, and then I used to visit twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, do all the shopping.
All right, Gladys.
Roland next door, he used to come and do her lawns and just visit every morning to see if she was okay. She used to go and stand on the doorstep just to see people going by and just to have a chat or wave to people. Most of the people round about there used to see her standing there, and they'd all say hello and all say what a nice lady she was. She used to sleep in the chair. She'd never go to bed. She used to say, "You die in bed."
OK, Gladys, what I want you to do is start from the beginning and tell me what's happened.
Well, I fell on the floor and he tried to force himself on me, but I wouldn't let him. He had an earring on and it fell out. Get off me, you're hurting me, go away, go away. I remembered I'd got a lemonade bottle. I was down here and I picked the lemonade bottle up and I hit him with it. Go away, go away, go away, get out. And then he got up and took my handbag, and that's all I remember.
They didn't find the man. Nobody saw him coming or going, so they hadn't got much to go on, really. As the weeks went on, it just sort of like, well, just went out of her mind, really. She just didn't want to discuss it or talk about it. I always wondered if he'd ever come back myself, but I never used to speak about it to my auntie because I didn't want to upset her or worry her. We tried to put it out his mind as much as possible.
Hello, Mrs. Godfrey. Hello, it's Central Control. Can you hear us? Mrs. Godfrey, can you hear us? It's Central.
Gladys!
Mrs. Godfrey, it's Central Control. Is everything okay?
I bought your paper.
Hello, Mrs. Godfrey.
Gladys, it's Roland.
Central Control, can you hear us? Mrs. Godfrey, can you hear us?
Gladys?
Gladys was found murdered. She'd been raped and severely beaten, and DNA recovered from the scene shows her killer was the man she'd fought off 18 months before.
Well, she was poorly and she was very frail. We didn't expect her to carry on many more years, but for her to live the life she's led and then die in these circumstances, it was devastating to us all. Devastating.
Poor Gladys. And Kevin, you know that it was the same man who committed both attacks. Was he local, do you think?
Well, Gladys was attacked in April 2001. We know the same man attacked her in September 2002. It is my belief that the offender either lives in that area or definitely has connections to that Mansfield area.
You've got one thing in particular that might point to a local area.
Yes, in the April attack, Gladys's handbag was stolen, and that was found abandoned some 300 yards away on Arundel Drive on the Ladybrook estate.
Arundel Drive?
Yes. That's a key area for us. The offender may live in that particular area.
And what have you been able to find out about him?
We know that he's a white man, he's tall, possibly 6 foot tall. Gladys described him as a youngish man. But what we do know from the April attack is that Gladys scratched him and pulled a gold hooped earring from one of his ears.
Now, we've got the earring, so let's just show the viewers here. There's nothing particularly distinctive about it. I mean, it's hollow inside, and you can't see it on the camera, it's got a tiny little dent on it, but someone might recognise that. So presumably he will have come home or gone out from this attack with a scratch on his cheek and missing an earring.
And minus an earring, most definitely.
And crucially, you've got DNA, haven't you?
We have got DNA. I would urge anyone with any suspicions to come forward. We can eliminate people from this inquiry by a simple process of mouth swabbing.
Gladys wasn't discovered till 8:30 in the morning, but we saw the intercom there that connected her to social services, and that was activated at, what, 5:15 in the morning?
Yes, that's right.
So what prompted that?
This was a personal alarm that Gladys, a pendant alarm, kept on her walk-in frame,
That could have been the offender entering the premises, leaving the premises, or it could have actually been Gladys trying to raise the alarm.
And there was a sighting at about 5:15 in the morning, wasn't there?
A crucial individual that we're trying to trace, a person on an old-fashioned cycle who was seen cycling along Winkburn Road from an alleyway which adjoins Devon Drive where Gladys lived. And this person was wearing an old tatty Mac and riding a bicycle.
And clearly that person may have nothing to do with this whatsoever, but you've got DNA, so it's very simple to eliminate the wrong person.
Absolutely.
How unusual is it, do you think, for someone to attack a person and then come back and try again?
It is unusual, and I would urge people to be security conscious, lock the doors and put the security chains on and just have their wits about them.
Take the sensible precautions. OK, Kevin, well, thanks very much. There's a £10,000 reward if you've any idea of a name. A simple DNA swab can tell the police if it's the right man. Give us a call. Or you can call the incident room number on 01623 483 020.
And as we say, your call really does count. 2 more cases now, solved because viewers were brave enough to pick up the phone. Two years ago, Khalilur Rahman, a retired restaurant owner, was on his way home from Birmingham city centre when he was attacked and viciously kicked. A month later, he died in hospital. We had this CCTV to go on, but at the time the appeal seemed disappointing.
To be honest, tonight we haven't had quite as good information as we would have liked.
But 3 weeks later, as often happens, several people got up the courage to contact the police. They named Christopher Cucciaro. He admitted getting into a scuffle with Khalilur, but denied hitting or kicking him in the stomach. The jury didn't believe him. He's been convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 6 years. Craig Swain was wanted for indecently assaulting a 14-year-old boy in Scarborough. Police thought he was probably in northeast England, so they were surprised when, after he saw himself on the programme, he handed himself in at a police station in Torquay in Devon. He pleaded guilty and has been sentenced to 2.5 years for gross indecency and 3 months for deception. Matthew Peters went on the run from his home in Nelson in Lancashire after raping a 13-year-old girl. When we showed his photo last February, a viewer rang to say they'd seen him in Dorset. The search was focused there and he was arrested 2 months later. But he pleaded not guilty, forcing the girl to give evidence. Even so, he was convicted of rape and last week was sentenced to 6.5 years.
Well, some of our best results come from our rogues gallery of wanted faces. So here to take us through this month's selection, our resident police officers Jackie Haynes and Jeremy Payman.
Humberside police need to find Niaz Ahmed Niaz. He was the imam at a mosque in Scunthorpe last August when a woman was sexually assaulted. He's got strong links to the Asian community in Bradford, but he could be anywhere in Britain. Gun crime is a high priority for my home force, the Met, and we're particularly keen to find Stephen Franks. He was in court for selling a machine gun, but disappeared halfway through his trial. Nonetheless, he was sentenced in his absence to 5 years. John Fitzpatrick was a solicitor at a firm in Bradford. Now, we'd like to ask him about the disappearance of nearly £2 million worth of clients' money over 6 years.
My colleagues in Thames Valley are dealing with a kidnap and assault where the victim was left traumatised and scarred. Javeed Farouk might know something about it. He's from Reading and he used to work as a taxi driver. Ivor Sparks said he was a doctor, although he's got no medical qualifications at all. He's been accused of indecently assaulting 2 small girls. He was based near Manchester, but he could be anywhere now. 2 pretty good clues. He recently sent a birthday card with a York postmark and his arms are covered with tattoos. Now, John Stanley's an HGV driver who could also be anywhere tonight, but he should have been in court 7 months ago to answer charges of indecency towards a child. He's got scars on his chin and on his right hand. Now, on all of these faces, please call us here in the studio, 0500 600 600.
We've already got over 30 names put forward as suspects in the Lesley Molseed murder. On the South London sex attacks, 2 callers have suggested a boxer. On the abducted children, 3 viewers have named a broadly similar area where they say they've seen the family. On the stabbing in a South London train, this is a witness who's now come forward, who's on the train. We have 5 viewers who saw the person at West Croydon. 3 officers say they know who he is. 1 has arrested him before and has got considerable details on him.
So, encouraging stuff there. News of some results now on two major cases. Both prompted a surge of calls to Crimewatch, but both have been solved independently. The first made national headlines day after day. The missing 15-year-old Danielle Jones.
Danielle lived in East Tilbury in Essex, and 2 years ago police called us in when she disappeared on her way to school.
I've always got that glimmer of hope that she is still alive, but we just know that she wouldn't have run away. We know that 100%. The type of girl she was, she just wouldn't have run away.
What we knew but couldn't reveal was that detectives already had suspicions about Danielle's uncle. Stuart Campbell was married to Danielle's aunt. Unknown to the family, he had a string of convictions, including one for child abduction, and he became increasingly obsessed with Danielle. Detectives discovered all this within days of her disappearance last June, though they had to keep an open mind. But when Crimewatch didn't produce any convincing alternatives, suspicions about Stuart Campbell hardened. Especially since he alone had had a text message from Danielle, which meant she must still be alive, or so he claimed. But technology showed he must have sent that message to himself. What's more, his alibi was fiction. Stuart Campbell said he'd been in this DIY store half a mile away. He wasn't. When police searched his van and home, they found paedophile photographs. They also discovered a diary listing contacts with Danielle, and then the strongest evidence of all, blood-stained stockings that matched her DNA. Stuart Campbell was convicted of murder and given life.
We need to find her so that we can lay her to rest in grief properly. And I was extremely proud of Danielle, and we miss her very much.
To the family's anguish, he's never revealed where Danielle's body lies.
The second case, the conviction of a rapist.
I was just really scared because he was saying that if I made a noise, he'd kill me. I was just sort of trying to remain calm. I just thought that he might be like taking me to some sort of horrible squat or something, and I was going to be trapped somewhere.
Unemployed Andrew McCartan was arrested last year after another attack while trying to flee after raping a 16-year-old girl in her home. He's been convicted of 4 counts of rape and 4 indecent assaults. He's awaiting sentence.
I've just been told we've had 3 viewers who've given names for the body, the burned body that was found in Peterborough. 2 of those names match.
And let me just remind you on the clues on that case. The memo, the burnt fragments of memo, the 2 names were Talbot and Armstrong. If you recognise those names, you know who they are. The police want to hear from you. Also, that T-shirt, Royal County of Berkshire Polo Club, and that cigarette lighter. Those are the key clues. If they mean anything to you, give us a call.
And no one's yet said that they've recognised the memo, so call us on that. All the numbers are on CFAX, page 621. And don't forget, you can see the details of all tonight's cases, plus crime prevention advice and a great deal more on our website, which is bbc.co.uk/crime.
And our phone lines are open until midnight tonight, and again this Thursday and Friday from 7:30 in the morning until midnight. We'll be back, as always, at 10:35 with a Crimewatch update.
It's our 200th programme, and as I've said 200 times now, if it's after your bedtime when we come back, don't have nightmares, do sleep well. Good night.
Good night.